Hi, everyone, and welcome to Sunday Talks Within the Nine-Sided Circle. It is our May 31st session, and I'm one of your hosts. I'm Noor Kyle, currently in crazy Los Angeles. And you, Mushtaq?
I am the other one of your hosts, and I am all blurry. Oh my God, let me fix this. There,
Yeah.
Much better. I am the other one of your hosts. I am in my memory palace in the Bay Area today.
Yay.
Yeah.
And so today we want to talk about what we are calling future pacing. You can probably hear the siren in the background.
We
I
can
apologize for that.
It's not your fault. You didn't know.
Yeah, so we may be hearing that quite a bit, unfortunately.
From any of our places.
Yeah.
Well, probably not Zainab or Cherise, but you guys could have a riot if you wanted.
Yeah, so here we are. This is our usual Sunday programming where we have our big group sessions, and we just want to say to those who are watching on YouTube, welcome to our channel. Thank you for being here, and if you'd like to keep track of what we're doing here, you can subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. Please like or dislike our videos depending on how you feel about them. Be honest, because we thrive on that feedback.
Unless you didn't like them, in which case be dishonest, because we have very sensitive feelings.
All right, yeah, protect our fifis. You know, we can't handle this. And leave a comment if you'd like to dialogue with us. And in the meantime, thanks for joining us, and here we go, talking about future pacing. Tell us more, Mushtaq.
Oh, I get to tell you more. Okay. So, future pacing is a name that I stole from the psychological community. The original term, it is yundhir, which means foreshadowing.
In Arabic, right?
In Arabic, yes. And it is the practice of seeing into the future. Not like a psychic, not like, oh my God, I can see into the future and I see that you are going to be very, very rich. And then you're going to give me all your money.
Damn. Okay.
So that I can protect it from you. No, not that. No, this is the practice of before you do something, to stop and imagine what the likely outcome of you doing this or not doing this would be. Taking it forward several steps, not just one step, but 5, 7 steps into the future to see if the outcome is what you want. And this is a fundamental practice of our particular tariqah. It's something that we will we will sit and do anytime we come across a major choice, or anytime we have an urge towards instant gratification. Because one of the things that we want to do is to be able to make this little gap between wanting something and grabbing something. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So you want the ice cream. You go, oh, ice cream, ice cream, ice cream. And you pause and you go, all right, do I really need to eat that ice cream? Is my momentary gratification going to be worth the long-term outcome of this?
Maybe, maybe not.
And how would you know? Tell us, Noor, how would you know?
Well, then you kind of, I mean, here's how I might do it. You think into what it would be like to make a choice. So let's say you are someone who is lactose intolerant, let's say, and you think to yourself, okay, if I eat this ice cream, yes, I will be happy about it, and I will enjoy the flavor and the taste of it. And then perhaps 20 minutes after that, I may have a really bad stomach ache. And that stomach ache is going to mean that not only am I going to be stuck at home in the bathroom for 2 hours, but it's going to mean that I'm going to miss out on this event that I promised I'd attend. And so you start thinking about the layers of consequence. And let's say you don't eat it, then it's like, well, okay, so I miss out on this opportunity to enjoy the taste, texture, all that stuff of this ice cream. But then I get to go home and I'm not going to be stuck in the bathroom, and I get to attend that party that I promised that I would attend.
Which may give you a better dopamine rush than the ice cream.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that's of course a simple example, but this definitely is something that's even more valuable when it comes to heavier decision making. So, what's something that comes to mind in that regard, Mushtaq?
Well, there's a famous quote from the novel Dune, which I absolutely love. And I'm going to read it to you. This is from a book within the book called The Wisdom of Muad'Dib. The Fremen were supreme in that quality that the ancients called Spannungsbogen, which is the self-imposed delay between desire for a thing and the act of reaching out to grasp that thing. Now, interestingly, that's an actual word from the German. And what it usually means is the act of building anticipation or intensity within a narrative. So Herbert changed it a little bit. And for those of you who did go through all of the 9 practices of the masters, you will remember that the last one is called wukuf, which means to pause. And one of the pauses that you do, and we will link to the playlist for that somewhere probably up here at the end of this video. So if you make it to the end of the video, you can find the playlist of some incredibly cool lectures on ancient traditions. So the wukuf, in this case, you would say tawakuf, which means that's the act of pausing, the act of not going there. Yeah, the full phrase in Arabic is for the practice is tawakuf qabi al-wasul, which is the pause before arriving at something. And we want to cultivate that pause. So the first thing in this practice is you desire something and you pause in between the thought of what you want and the action of taking it. That is the wukuf. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Then, after you've made that pause and you get to the point where you can stop yourself before you just grab whatever it is that you want or do whatever it is that you want to do, when you can make that pause, then you have the opportunity to do the foreshadowing. So usually when you learn this for the first month or two until you get good at it, every time you have a desire, you pause before you fulfill that desire. You don't bother with figuring out too much about it at that point, but you just get into the habit of making that pause. Then, after you've gotten moderately good at that, you start doing the foreshadowing, which is make the pause, then extrapolate the probable outcome of the behavior. Then choose whether or not the behavior is something that you want. Does that make sense? Y'all think you could do that?
I'm seeing Ilmar like say, maybe. Say more about that, Omar, if you don't mind.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's so some of the obviously happens in automatic, so this is, it's very, the habitual role, I mean, I just sort of override that. Some of it also is kind of almost like a bad habit. Like I find myself, not doing stuff because I get into this stories of what are the possible outcomes and stuff, so that's the other thing that comes to mind. The other thing that comes to mind is
do you choose that many bad actions?
do I choose that many bad actions? No, but I find myself almost avoiding some actions I could have taken by going into this sort of withdrawn contemplation sort of mode.
Then you're not doing it right.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah. The idea is if you extrapolate on the action and the outcome seems good, do it.
Right. And what I'm saying is that, at least for me, that doesn't sometimes happen. It's almost easy to fall into kind of a habit of avoidance doing that. And I grant you that that's not the proper way to do it. I'm not claiming it is.
Yeah.
The other thing that comes to mind on this is that, one place where this seems to be extremely valuable is in sort of emotional reactions. I mean, there was a hot situation, and instead of immediately responding, there's a chance of pausing and coming up with some response, which is just not pure reactivity. And that seems extremely valuable to me. Although I don't always able to do that.
Yeah, but you're absolutely correct. That pause can keep you out of trouble. We experienced that today.
We did. Yep.
And it worked out well.
Yeah.
You want to tell us what about it?
I mean, just to keep it appropriately vague, it was an online conversation, and I posted something and got a response that I initially took like a little bit more personally than the author intended. But instead of reacting in a, in a way that would have caused conflict, I was just like, okay, I'm acknowledging my feelings that this is making me feel a certain way, but I don't want to be destructive in how I respond. So I took some time to just kind of relax and reread it a couple times so that I could understand a bit better what their intentions might have been. And then from there, I was able to dialogue with them kind of in like a meta conversation away from the comment posted, because I knew that it would be better if we interacted directly rather than, in the stream of that conversation that had me feeling a certain way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But sometimes what it feels to me like is, well, I'm not being authentic because I'm not letting my normal immediate reaction happen. And I think that's not the case, but that's almost like a way of discouraging that kind of action.
Yep.
Saying, well, you should just respond naturally, or something.
Yeah, there's a problem with that, because sometimes if you respond naturally, you end up getting in a lot of trouble.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Easiest place to find that out is in the marriage. Which I've had a lot of experience with.
Yeah, or you beat somebody over the head who really, really deserves it, but they didn't attack you, so all of a sudden you're in big trouble.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, this idea of authenticity probably needs some poking at.
Yeah. Well, my personal point of view is that robots cannot be authentic. And if you're just doing the immediate stimulus response, you're working from robot brain.
Yeah, that's true.
People don't like it when I say that, but what you're going to do?
Well, there is also the problem of almost like overthinking something, which some of us cerebral types tend to get into, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of felt like that's what you were getting at.
Right.
Yeah.
Previous.
So if you were doing this in the traditional milieu, there would be some guy in a long robe and a big old honking turban going, whack, don't overthink it.
Right. Yeah. The Zen guys are good at that too.
Yep.
Well, there could be a way of thinking of this, I don't know, maybe this, maybe that trance state as a chosen action too, that you have to decide whether you want to go into it or not.
Yep. But we're talking about wanting to do something and then pausing before you do it.
Yeah, that's all really.
Yeah. Not going, whether you go into trance states or not, that is irrelevant. It's just, I want to do this. Pause. Will this benefit me? If so, how? Will this hurt me? If so, how? Now choose. Simple. Not easy. Not easy by a long shot, but simple. And yes, you will go into a kind of a trance state where you are extrapolating the future outcome of your behavior. That's for sure. But the focus is on the possible future outcomes of whatever you choose to do. It's like the old story of the guy who goes to the doctor and says, "Doctor, when I do this, it hurts." And the doctor says, "Don't do that." It's an old joke, but it still has some truth to it. Does that make sense, Nancy, or did I get you off even further than you were?
Well, part of it is that if you do the don't do that joke, is what that is becomes a complex question actually. Because, you know, you're doing this in a certain way and it hurts, but if you could do something similar in a more thoughtful way and it wouldn't hurt, and you should let yourself do it.
Yep. That may be overthinking. Maybe not. We'll have to decide on that one.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm actually more distracted by the question of how much can you know about some things?
Well, that's a matter of experimentation.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to know everything, though. I mean, my experience is that with most things, I can determine whether or not the outcome will be negative or positive. Sometimes I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
There are times when I do something that I think, oh, this will have a positive outcome, and it doesn't work. That's okay. It's all feedback.
Mm-hmm.
But at least I went into it with my eyes open.
Instead of just like stumbling thoughtlessly into it. Yeah.
And it's certainly good to have a habit of using the knowledge you've got,
Mm-hmm.
which a lot of people ignore.
Yep.
And the thing that people ignore the most is the outcomes of their behaviors. This is, as far as I'm concerned, almost epidemic in the human race. We do not pay attention to the paths we are walking down. It's all, oh, I want to do this, or I don't want to do that, or I should do this and I won't, and all of this, and you screw yourself.
And there's certainly a lot of repetitive behavior where you do have the information.
Hell yeah.
Inertia, yeah. Yep. Change would be too hard and I don't like it, so I'm not going to do it.
Yep.
That kind of thing. I mean, we're experiencing now climate change.
Yep.
I mean, we didn't necessarily know that this is what the upshot would be centuries ago, but at some point we realized that this is the case, and yet we kicked the can down the road and we're thinking, well, you know, I need to do this right now, so I'm going to do it, and I'm not going to worry about the future. The future can take care of itself. And that's kind of a collective attitude that a lot of people in power have had. But I do see it trickling down into everyday activities as well. I mean, a lot of us are living in a mode where we're in denial about such things.
Sad but true.
Yep.
But I wonder if Nancy's point, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Nancy, but I wonder if Nancy's point to some degree is that, in a sense, there's no end to how much research we can do about the possible outcomes of actions. Right? It's also true that if we wait, we'll probably have more information. So, you know, I think there's a tension between, on the one hand, well, we want to act. On the other hand, we want to act thoughtfully, and that means we want to research to some degree the possible outcomes. But, I mean, some of us could research the rest of our lives about possible outcomes and never do
You're
that.
using the wrong word, though. I don't want you to research.
Just ponder it.
Just imagine. If I say, imagine the 7 steps from the choice that you make, that doesn't require research. You don't need to look it up in books. You don't need to check the internet. You don't need to do any of that. You just need to sit and do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, okay. That gives you usually enough information.
Yeah. Unless you've got a mindset that essentially takes you down.
That's called not having any discipline.
Okay.
Well, let him finish his thought. I am curious
Sorry.
what he's saying. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a mindset that takes you down. I mean, let's take someone who's extremely prejudiced, right, about some topic, you know, and their 7 steps are probably going to be very different from, say, your 7 steps forward. And I guess, you know,
that person would never find themselves doing this practice. I would not teach it to them. If I get somebody who's really, really prejudiced, they are not qualified to do this work. They need to go back to the factory and get a reset.
Yeah.
So this work is not for everybody. This work requires that you be more honest with yourself than most people are willing to be.
Okay. And not fool yourself about how honest you really are, right?
Yes.
I mean, because, yes. Okay.
And that's why you have the advantage. That's why it's an advantage to have a teacher. As I have said many a time, the main function of a teacher is to tell you when you are lying to yourself.
Right. As opposed to, in a way, to a sangha, because you know, a community can be very self-reinforcing. You know?
Yeah,
I know people in these sort of alt-right type communities, which are, you know, they're continuously reinforced in their outlook and in their projections, obviously.
Well, I've seen that. I mean, as someone who is, you know, connected to or has been part of some pretty activist-oriented left communities, I mean, it happens there too.
Right.
There's groupthink in any community that is driven by reactivity rather than reflection.
And not just there's a sort of, I mean, one of the things that always fascinates me about riots and stuff like that, there's a mass energy. I mean, if you're in part of one of those, there's this really kind of like an energetic force that almost moves you into a mass agreement, which may be good or bad, the direction moves you into, but I find that kind of a disquieting force, you know.
Yeah, but my advice is don't go to places like that.
Yeah, I mean, I have become more sensitive to that as a result of having experienced exactly what you're talking about, Ilmar.
Mhm.
And when I start feeling that sense of like conform, or there will be like, you know, consequences to nonconformity, then I know there's something to look at there.
Yeah, definitely. But there's also something seductive about that energy. I
Yeah, because it's like, oh yay, community.
Yeah,
And
exactly. Exactly.
people call it, I mean, there's this phenomenon called trauma bonding. And one way that can manifest in groups like that is that you are connecting over bad things that have happened to you, or bad things you've seen, or, you know, just like being against a thing. You all bond over that. That's what connects you. There's nothing nurturing necessarily about that experience.
Yeah.
You can unpack it, sure, but sometimes people use that space as an opportunity to kind of just bathe in the trauma.
Yeah. And sometimes it's not even necessarily trauma. It's just that.
Yeah. I mean, that's just an example that I.
Yeah, I'm thinking of, you know, like the Columbia student uprisings, which I was, you know, a part of. There's something really seductive about that energy. You know?
Mm-hmm.
The basic thing that is most seductive about that is that it removes the necessity for you to think for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives you community. It gives you this
Yeah.
sense of community that says, well, you know, I must be doing the right thing because everybody else is doing this, you know.
Yeah, and what can happen is if you begin to have thoughts about like, well, what if we shifted in a different direction, or what if we thought about it this way, and it's a way that doesn't, you know, it doesn't follow that line or that energy that has up to that point been produced, people may kick you out. You may lose your community as a result of seeing things in a different way.
Yeah.
Or wanting to grow out of the current, you know, situation that group is finding itself in.
Yeah. And it's a method that a lot of political movements have employed very effectively. It's, you know,
Yep.
it's
So what we have here is an antidote to that.
Yeah, I definitely feel that's the case. Yep.
And it's really important that we do have an antidote to that. We actually have several different antidotes to that.
And this is one very valuable antidote.
Yeah, I can attest that personally, this particular practice changed my life.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean,
example how?
Pardon?
Can you give us an example of how it did that?
Yeah, it was much harder to Brer Rabbit me.
Oh yeah.
You know Brer Rabbit, right?
I've heard the word. I'm not sure if I really understand the reference.
So this is kind of old racist stories, but they come from you know, back in the slave times, about Brer Rabbit and Brer Fox and Brer Bear and all of these, and they're like folksy wisdom tales.
And Brer is like brother, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. But the fox is always wanting to catch the rabbit. Fox hates the rabbit. And so every now and again, Fox catches the rabbit. Brer Fox grabs it, and Brer Rabbit goes, "Oh, Brer Fox, you caught me. I know that you want to do me in, but please don't do the one thing. Don't throw me in that briar patch. Whatever you do, don't throw me in that briar patch." And Brer Fox, wanting to do the worst thing that he can do to Brer Rabbit, throws him in the briar patch, which is exactly where a rabbit wants to be.
So he can skitter away.
So he can skitter away, and the fox can't go in after him.
Mm-hmm.
So when you run across things like that in your life, which you do all the time, the various psychological tricks of manipulation that people and institutions want to pull on you, that you pull on yourself, that churches pull on you, that, I mean, it's all about pulling these manipulations. That's what culture is built on. And you can go, oh, I don't want to throw Brer Rabbit in the briar patch. I want to bite his little head off instead. And then you get to be the one who's happy.
I'm just realizing this is what my Tai Chi teacher would call a handle.
Yeah.
Oh, say more.
Oh, it's like, ideally in Tai Chi, you're very flexible and very sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
But suppose that your arm is stiff, then somebody can grab you by that arm and it's a handle on you.
Yeah.
Yes.
The essence of Tai Chi push hands is to try and get your partner to get stiff and to get rigid, because then you can push them, then you can move them, while at the same time you stay very, very flexible. So yeah, that's a perfect analogy.
Yep.
And in order to stay flexible, you have to be willing to make that pause. And that's, I know exactly what that feels like physically, because I'll feel somebody giving me this energy that feels threatening and I want to tighten up, right? And if I tighten up, they have me because I gave them a handle.
Mm-hmm.
But if I can relax and meld into that push in such a way that I can let it pass by me, not only do they not have me, but maybe I have them.
I just thought of another one, this is from a book about art fraud, which is what makes people easy to scam? And the answer is need, greed, and speed.
Yep. Yeah, Orson Welles did a great movie on that called F for Fake. Did you ever see that, Nancy?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it was about Elmire. Do you know who Elmire was?
Art forger?
Greatest art forger of all time. Elmire has original art hanging in galleries around the world with other people's signatures on it that nobody wants to admit are forgeries because they look better. I mean, he could do things exactly in the style of the artist. He wasn't just making copies. He was doing original art in the style of Picasso or Rembrandt or any of these artists.
Wow.
Yeah, if you ever have a chance to see F for Fake, definitely do it.
Cool. So, yeah, I know we talk a lot about moving from kind of a childlike level of maturity to human adulthood, and being able to do this pause and reflection thing is part of adulthood. It's part of adulting in this deeper sense.
Yeah. Noor and I were talking about this before the talk, and she brought up that, well, there's this famous experiment where you take a bunch of kids and you put them in a room and you put like a marshmallow or a cookie in front of all of them. And you say to them, okay, I have to go out of the room for 10 minutes. You can eat the cookie if you want, but if you wait until I get back, I will give you 2 more cookies. And unsurprisingly, most of the kids eat the cookie. They cannot think ahead long enough to go, oh, if I can wait for 10 minutes, I get 3 cookies to eat.
Yeah, and I think this is an important experiment, and I would love if we could take into consideration the fact that sometimes we need to be better resourced before we can be patient. Yep. And this is important to think about, because if we are not well resourced, it's going to be hard to wait. We're going to want to grab whatever is in front of us right now and run, because who knows if it's going to be there when we turn around. But yeah.
Oh, excuse me.
What were you going to say, Nancy?
It's worse than that. That's one of the many social psychology experiments that didn't replicate.
Mm-hmm. And
last I heard, it turned out that the children who were more willing to wait were the ones who had been growing up around trustworthy adults. Yeah. And that is why their lives turned out better.
Well, this is why we can foster trustworthy relationships with people as adults, our most intimate relationships, friendships with ourselves, most importantly. We can become that secure relationship so that we have a foundation on which we can stand when we need to make choices in which we need to delay or even withhold gratification.
Yep. And Noor was pointing out that there have been some research done that suggests that some indigenous cultures are immediate gratification types, which may be true.
Yeah, and
but there are also some indigenous cultures that teach this literally from the cradle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You were going to say?
I was just going to say, in those particular communities, I think it comes down to the fact that it's kind of like similar to what I was just saying about kids who may be experiencing like resource scarcity and stuff. Indigenous communities who tend to be quick on the uptake in that sense, tend to be living in similar conditions. But I would think that there's a difference between interacting with resources and how you behave with people in your family in terms of sharing and things like that.
Yeah, so my comeback to that was to look at Apache culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's a relevant thing to share as well.
In Apache culture, especially up until day before yesterday, was pretty resource poor. And yet, if you had a young hunter who went out and bagged a deer, he was not going to sit and eat that deer. He was going to bring it back to the camp and share it with everybody, because his ability to future pace hit the people of his band who would sit there being hungry was pretty strong. And there was the cultural consideration of he would be viewed as selfish if he did that. Little girl goes out and collects piñon nuts. She doesn't sit and eat them all after she collects them. She brings them home and shares them with her family. And that is taught from the cradle.
Well, that's interesting. So how much of that is actually what you would call future pacing, and how much of that is a drilled, not necessarily drilled in, but a taught habit?
There's a lot of future pacing that is involved, because I'm sitting there and I'm going, oh my God, I have 20 tuna, not fish, but the fruit of the cactus. And then I imagine myself, because when I was a kid, I loved to eat cactus tuna. They're delicious. And I imagined myself gobbling them down and getting all stained with red juice and everything and being totally happy. And then I would imagine after that, my cousins going, you didn't bring any to share, and feeling bad about that. So yes, there's future pacing involved in that. You're taught how to think in that way.
And so
you're literally taught to consider the effects your actions are going to have on others. And that's the worst thing you can say, and this is true of both Apache and Navajo. The worst thing you can say about a person is, yeah, he acts like he has no relatives, meaning he acts utterly selfishly.
And does it become just like a habit after a while, where you don't actually consciously think through those 7 or how many steps ahead, and just do it because it's become a cultural habit? Or do you continue having this thought process each time?
I think that you do continue having the thought process. I think that it just happens a lot faster.
Okay. It'd be interesting to experiment with that. I'm not sure how you construct an experiment along those lines, but
yeah, it would require a whole culture to do that experiment. You can't do that experiment in 2 weeks.
Part of it, getting back to the trust thing, is that, you know, you bring what you hunter-gather back to the tribe because you trust that other people in the tribe will do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what it comes down even at a more basic level is your expectation that the future is somewhat predictable. I mean, like I grew up, part of my growing up was during the middle of the war. And, you know, I mean, at that point, you grab whatever the hell you could grab because you didn't know what the hell tomorrow would be like, you know.
Yeah. But even, let me tell you, for the Apache people, for the last 200 years since the Spaniards showed up, life was not predictable. We had a 200-year war, first with the Spanish, then with the Mexicans, then with the Anglos. There was never a time when your camp might not be raided by somebody's army or another. So you have that same thing, but you think about it in a different way. Yes, you grab anything that you can, but then you share it out with the people around you. You're ready to run at any moment.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. I don't want to get off too much on Apache culture, but it's something to worth thinking about.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
I can share something.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Oh, we currently have an ad campaign in Australia to stop people from overtaking trucks when they can't really see the coming traffic. So if, for example, the ad campaign started, there's a man, it's usually a man, driving behind a truck and the truck is too slow. So he wants to overtake. And so he does. And the ad ends with the truck driver jumping out of his truck and looking back and seeing two cars have had a head-on collision. And so then the ad campaign has continued. At the end of the ad, they always go, yeah, nah. And so that means, yes, I'll overtake. No, I won't.
Yeah.
And then the next series of ads has been from the perspective of the family that was coming towards the man in the car. And their reaction of seeing this car has pulled out from behind the truck and is now heading straight at them, and the aftermath of that. And so when you talk about future pacing, I thought this ad was awesome in showing what it was like to have the aftermath from both sides of the family that was in the car that was doing no wrong, the man who made the decision to overtake the truck, and the truck driver's reaction when he jumps out of the truck. He goes, ugh, like that. Yeah. He's just devastated at what he's just witnessed. But they have a series of ads where he didn't overtake. And he goes, yeah, nah. And then you see the family drive past really fast. So you think, whew, that was lucky. And the look on his face like, whew, I'm glad I didn't do that.
Yeah.
And I like that because there's not just a negative 7 steps ahead thing. This is about the possibility that it didn't happen and how good that felt. And I thought that was a very clever ad campaign. And it made me think of why people are protesting about the lockdown is they can't think of the 7 steps ahead of what their actions will do. So when I actually the other day cancelled a client who booked a massage, but he had the forethought to tell me, my partner is a teacher at a school where someone has just been detected with the infection. So do you think we should cancel? And my first thought was, he's been begging me for a massage. Then I thought, tomorrow I see my 79-year-old mother and my 80-year-old father in a nursing home. If something else happened and I passed them an infection, and it doesn't even have to be COVID-19, even if it's the flu, they could die. I'll feel crap. he will feel crap because he passed it to me, because there will be that contact tracing happening. And you think, yeah, we'll put it off to next week and make sure that your partner didn't have the infection. And we can relax and enjoy the feeling of being infection free and not having that worry behind us.
Yeah.
So that was a future pacing thing that we did. And I'm thinking people can be culturally educated through ad campaigns like that show you what happens if you make the wrong decision. So it's just called yeah nah. Yeah nah.
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect example because it covers both aspects.
Yep. It's a great ad. Yeah nah.
Yeah, and it's a very visceral issue.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it can be applied in so many ways. And so it's become a little bit of a catchphrase. It was already a catchphrase that Aussies do anyway, yeah, nah. Don't you think, girls? You know, my Aussie girls there, they know, they've heard it, you know.
I mean, we've used it here too. Like it's that rethinking an option and being like, yeah, nah, I'm not gonna do that. Nope.
Because initially you want to do it. You want to do it. You want to satisfy that urge. And so, you know, for a long time, for years now, anytime I like something in clothing in a shop, I would say, sleep on it, sleep on it. Next day, I try it on. And then the next day I wake up, did I really want that? No, I just wanted to try it on. And so I haven't spent my money. I just had that thing. And I think sometimes you have to tell people, sleep on it.
Yep.
Sleep on it. And get them used to that, so that there are ways of mitigating a decision that could be going pear-shaped, and you think, just wait a minute. Just wait a minute. Because they might not, as you say, have that capacity. And if you're a culture that's not used to pausing and delaying gratification, just saying sleep on it actually is very useful.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
That pause thing is tough. Yeah.
Y'all know who the Tuaregs are, right? They live in North Africa. The men wear usually blue or white turbans, and they always have their face covered.
They're very, very long fabric turbans.
Yes,
yeah.
And they ride camels between Timbuktu and the salt mines deep in the Sahara. And they bring back salt, which they've done since forever. Well, I am told that a Tuareg family will not camp closer than a mile from water. They don't want to be right up against the water. They want to teach their kids that water is not something that you can take for granted. And so that's built into their culture.
Yep.
And so the kid has to think, oh, I could drink this water, but my little sister will get thirsty if I drink all the water, and I have to go a whole mile to get more water. This may be apocryphal, I don't know, but it sounds about right.
Yep. And I think we all have versions of that in our day-to-day lives that we may not even necessarily think about consciously, but internally we're doing the math in such a way that it's like, well, I know if I do this, it's going to affect this person that I care about in my household or whatever.
Yeah. Like that last bowl of ice cream that's sitting in, there we go, all blurry again. Boom. Nope.
That last serving of ice cream in the freezer.
Yeah, that last serving of the ice cream in the freezer. And you're thinking about it and you get there and it's gone because your roommate did not realize that if they ate it, you would be sad.
True story, y'all.
That, you know, that really brings in kind of a slightly different dimension that I've, you know, first sort of looked at it when Sherry was describing that ad campaign. There's one aspect of delaying the gratification, of leading time to look at consequences. There's another aspect, though, and that is of looking at other people's viewpoints of the possible outcome, like those cars coming from that family coming from the other direction. And that's almost like a separate, I don't know if it's a skill, but it's a separate psychological ability to sort of, look at someone else's possible experience of that outcome. You still need to do that delay to look at that.
Yes.
But now you have some additional content of what you're looking at.
Yep. And that part is in some ways the most important. What effects do your actions have on the people around you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, there's also such a thing as too much self-denial.
Nobody said anything about self-denial.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about self-denial. That doesn't enter into this. This is this action good for me?
Mm-hmm.
Is it bad for me? Is it good for the people around me? Is it bad for the people around me? So self-denial is not a part of this discussion. Zainab and Zoha, you guys are so quiet. You're supposed to be raising a ruckus.
Tuning in. I think that's why I like this exercise so much, because you can start with yourself. Because I agree with Elmar, it's sometimes hard to, it's almost another skill to be able to think about others and empathy with them. I think this exercise enables me to start with myself and be like, do I want to overeat now and be grumpy at night with my friends, or do I choose my friends over this burger or something?
Yeah.
So there's always somewhere to start with this exercise, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, and I like the pause. I've noticed the body sometimes wants to, or things around wants to actually distract you from that pause. Whereas when you catch it, you just have to pause, and
Yep.
yeah.
That's why the Arabic word is actually pause, literally. If you want to pause on the road, that's what you do, tawaqquf.
Exactly.
Yeah, thanks for confirming that. Yeah. I mean, Mushtaq might know, but I am not so sharp on my other language skills, so.
Slowly improving.
Yep.
Mine are slowly degenerating.
He's still good, though. He still keeps it all up in there.
I agree.
All right, so basically, that's what we got to say.
Yep. Exercise that pause. And then if you can do that, then it's much easier to do the extrapolating on the benefits or the harm of a particular action.
Yep.
Yep. And doing nothing is also an option too. There's always that. That is, in an array of options, doing nothing is an option to be chosen. So keep that in mind.
Yep.
All right. There we go.
There we go. Are we ready to wrap it up?
Well, do we have any updates to offer?
I don't think so.
Yeah, okay. So we finished our Huddle and Play series. We did 60 episodes. We said we were gonna
60 will be out tomorrow.
Yeah, and so that's that. We were gonna continue until quarantine ended, or we got to 60 episodes. We got to 60 episodes. So there we go. We're very proud of ourselves. So check it out.
We pat ourselves on the back.
Yeah. Yay, milestone. Yay, thanks, Umar. So yeah, we're gonna be being kind of quiet this week because we got other things we gotta take care of, and then we're gonna be brainstorming what kinds of projects we can do next in addition to all the other stuff we're doing, like Mushtaq's stick fighting thing. I have a newsletter to put out this week, all that stuff.
Yep.
Yep.
And a reminder, do your stick fighting lessons. Hit each other. Whack, whack.
He's shaking his stick at you right now.
Yes.
Yep. But I'm glad you're all kind of doing that thing. That's so cool.
Yep.
Yay.
Yeah, and
So.
we're going through some major changes in the next week, which we will tell you all about later.
Yep. Yep. Updates are coming.
Yep. Or we'll let you guess and see if you can figure that out.
But yeah, I guess we can wrap up at least as far as the recording goes. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Don't forget to leave us feedback if you're watching on YouTube. Thumbs up, thumbs down. What's that? Subscribe to our channel and to our newsletter and stuff. All that stuff is in the description.
Yeah, below.
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
All right.